The hallway went silent. Not the quiet of boredom, but the kind that makes your chest tighten and your heart slam against your ribs. A backpack slipped from trembling fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. Lockers rattled as bodies froze mid-step. Conversations died instantly, cut off like someone had pulled the plug on the entire school. And in the center of it all, a new black student was being choked against a metal locker, his back slammed flat, the cold steel digging into his spine. His feet dangled just inches above the floor, toes scraping helplessly. No one moved. No one spoke. 16-year-old Marcus Hill had been at Jefferson High for less than 3 days. 3 days in a school that felt too big, too loud, and too unfamiliar. New city, new halls, new faces that looked through him instead of at him. That morning, his mother had hugged him a little longer than usual. "Keep your head down," she said softly. "Focus on your classes. Stay away from trouble." Marcus had nodded. He always did. But trouble didn't care about promises. Trouble found him anyway. The hand wrapped tightly around Marcus's throat belonged to Tyler Kane, a senior, a star wrestler, and the most feared bully in the entire school. Tyler was bigger, heavier, and carried himself like the rules didn't apply to him. Teachers looked the other way. Students stayed silent. Everyone knew better than to cross him. His friends stood in a loose circle, some laughing, others recording on their phones, unsure whether to cheer or step back. "Thought you didn't understand English," Tyler sneered, his breath hot and sour in Marcus's face. "I said move." Marcus tried to speak, but no sound came out. His lungs burned. Panic crept in. His hands clawed desperately at Tyler's arm, fingers slipping over muscle that wouldn't budge. Tyler was stronger, bigger, and cruel. Spots danced in Marcus's vision. The hallway blurred. The weight of every stare pressed down on him. Students watching, whispering, doing nothing. This was how it always happened, Marcus thought. Someone decides you're smaller. Someone decides you don't belong. Tyler leaned in closer. "What's wrong?" he mocked. "Cat got your tongue?" A few students laughed nervously. Then, "Hey!" The shout cracked through the hallway like thunder. A teacher's voice echoed from the far end, sharp and furious. Tyler hesitated for half a second. That half second changed everything. Marcus's feet hit the ground again as the grip loosened, just for a moment. And in that moment, something inside Marcus shifted. The fear didn't disappear, but it stopped controlling him. And what happened next would leave the entire school in shock. Marcus wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He didn't walk the halls looking for attention or approval. He wore clean clothes, kept his head up, spoke politely, and carried himself with a quiet confidence that came from knowing who he was. But to Tyler Kane, that confidence looked like disrespect. On Marcus's very first day at Jefferson High, Tyler noticed him immediately. The new kid stood out, not because he tried to, but because he didn't. While others slouched, joked, and shoved each other in the halls, Marcus moved calmly, eyes forward, like he had somewhere important to be. As Marcus passed by, Tyler leaned toward his friends and whispered just loud enough to be heard. "Wrong school." Marcus kept walking. Another whisper followed. "Go back where you came from." Still, Marcus didn't react. Tyler smirked and added the final blow. "You don't belong here." Marcus heard every word. His jaw tightened for a split second, but then he let it go. He always did. Back at his old school, ignoring bullies had kept him safe. Silence was a shield. His father had drilled that lesson into him from the time he was a kid. "Reacting gives them power," his father used to say. "They want your anger. Don't feed it." So Marcus didn't. He focused on his classes. He answered teachers respectfully. He sat alone at lunch, earbuds in, eyes down. He told himself that if he stayed invisible long enough, Tyler would get bored. But Tyler wasn't bored. Tyler wanted control, and words weren't enough anymore. That morning, the hallway was crowded, students rushing to class, laughter bouncing off lockers, the usual chaos of school that felt untouchable inside its own walls. Marcus stepped aside to avoid a group of seniors. As he turned the corner, his shoulder brushed against someone else's arm. Just a light touch, barely noticeable, but the hallway suddenly felt colder. Tyler stopped walking. Slowly, deliberately, he turned around and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was thin, sharp, the kind of smile that meant someone was about to enjoy what came next. Marcus knew immediately. "You just put hands on me," Tyler said loudly, his voice echoing so others could hear. Heads turned. Footsteps slowed. A circle began to form. "That's assault." Marcus raised his hand slightly. "I didn't mean to." Before he could finish the sentence, Tyler shoved him hard. Marcus's back slammed into a locker with a loud metallic bang that echoed down the hallway. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. Then came the choke. Tyler's hand wrapped around Marcus's throat, fingers tightening instantly. Not a warning, not a threat. Full force. Marcus's feet lifted off the floor as Tyler pressed him harder into the locker. The cold metal dug into his spine. His backpack slid down and dropped to the floor. The hallway froze. Students stood in shock, eyes wide, mouths half open. Some pulled out their phones. Others looked away, pretending they saw nothing. No one stepped in. Marcus's hands shot up, grabbing Tyler's wrist, trying to pry it loose. His chest burned. His vision narrowed. Each breath became a fight. Tyler leaned in close, his voice low and mocking. "What's wrong?" he whispered. "Can't breathe." A few students laughed nervously. Marcus's heart pounded. Fear surged through him, but underneath it, something else stirred. Memory. His father's voice. His training. "Control your fear." His father had told him during long evenings at the gym. "Fear is loud. Discipline is quiet." Marcus's fingers tightened, not in panic but with purpose. He adjusted his footing, grounding himself even as his body screamed for air. Still, no one moved. Teachers were nowhere in sight. The hallway felt like a cage, every locker a silent witness. Tyler squeezed harder. That was the moment Marcus realized something painful and clear. Ignoring him hadn't made Tyler stop. Staying quiet hadn't made him safe. Tyler wanted to break him, to prove that silence meant weakness. The edges of Marcus's vision darkened. Then, "Hey, let him go." The shout exploded down the hallway. A teacher's voice, angry, sharp, and undeniable. Tyler hesitated, just for a moment. But that moment was enough. Tyler's grip loosened slightly as his attention shifted. Marcus's feet touched the ground. Air rushed painfully back into his lungs. And in that single breath between fear and survival, Marcus made a decision. He wasn't going to become what Tyler was. But he also wasn't going to let himself be destroyed. What happened next would shock the hallway and leave Tyler Kane with a regret he would never forget. What Tyler didn't know was who Marcus really was. Marcus wasn't weak. He had learned long ago that strength didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it stayed quiet, waiting, watching, enduring. His father, James Hill, was a former Marine, a man shaped by discipline, loss, and hard-earned wisdom. James had seen what violence could do, not just to bodies, but to families, to futures. He had buried friends who never made it home. He had watched anger destroy men who once had promise. So he raised his son differently, not with hatred, not with fear, but with control. From the time Marcus was 10 years old, his father trained him, not to fight, but to survive. Early mornings in empty gyms, long evenings practicing balance, breathing, patience. James taught him self-defense and jiu-jitsu, repeating the same rule every time they trained. "Never throw the first punch," he said, "but always know how to protect yourself." Marcus remembered those words now as Tyler's grip tightened around his throat. The hallway blurred. Sounds became distant, like they were underwater. His lungs burned. Panic tried to take control, clawing its way up his chest. But Marcus didn't panic. He focused on his breathing, on his balance, on the pressure of Tyler's hand, and the small weaknesses in his stance. His father's voice echoed in his mind. Strength comes from leverage, not rage. Marcus shifted his weight slightly, planting his feet more firmly on the ground. He reached up, not wildly, not desperately, but with purpose. His fingers wrapped around Tyler's wrist, not to pull, but to turn. Then he twisted. Tyler wasn't expecting resistance. The movement was small, controlled, almost invisible, but it was enough to break Tyler's balance. Marcus stepped to the side, guiding Tyler's momentum forward instead of fighting it. In one smooth motion, Tyler stumbled, then fell, Hard. The sound of Tyler's body hitting the floor echoed through the hallway like a dropped weight. The crowd gasped. Phones slipped from hands. Mouths fell open. No one laughed now. Tyler groaned, rolling slightly, stunned, not just by the fall but by the humiliation. His face burned red as he struggled to understand what had just happened. The kid he thought was weak had just put him on the ground. Marcus stepped back immediately. He didn't kick. He didn't punch. He didn't say a word. He stood there calmly, shoulders rising and falling as he regained control of his breathing. His hands were open, relaxed, non-threatening. That calm spoke louder than any insult ever could. For the first time, Tyler looked scared. Not of pain, but of exposure. Of being seen for what he really was. A bully who had finally picked the wrong target. The hallway stayed frozen for a few seconds longer, until heavy footsteps approached. What is going on here? The principal's voice cut through the tension. Teachers rushed in. Students were ordered back to class. Phones were shoved into pockets. The circle broke apart as quickly as it had formed. Tyler tried to sit up, pointing at Marcus. "He attacked me," he shouted. "He just snapped." Marcus said nothing. He didn't defend himself. He didn't argue. He simply stood there, silent, composed, waiting. Security arrived. Statements were taken. The principal's eyes moved from Tyler on the floor to Marcus standing tall, calm, and respectful. Something didn't add up, and the cameras had seen everything. As Marcus was escorted toward the office, whispers followed him down the hall, but they sounded different now. Not mocking, not cruel, awed. Tyler watched him go, pain throbbing in his shoulder, but something else hurt more. His power was gone, and for the first time in his life, Tyler Kane understood what real fear felt like. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. The office was tense. The kind of tension you could feel pressing against your chest. Tyler sat slouched in a chair, an ice pack pressed against his shoulder, his jaw clenched tight with anger. His leg bounced nonstop, impatience written all over his face. Every few seconds, he glanced at Marcus with pure hatred, like this was somehow still Marcus's fault. Marcus, on the other hand, sat quietly beside a school counselor. His hands were folded neatly in his lap. His breathing was steady. He stared at the floor, not in fear, but in respect for the room he was in. The contrast between them was impossible to ignore. Tyler's story came first. "He attacked me," Tyler said quickly, his voice sharp and confident. "I was just defending myself." He snapped for no reason. He gestured wildly as he spoke, playing the role he'd mastered over years of getting away with things. "He ran into me, got aggressive, and I reacted. Anyone would." The principal nodded slowly, listening but not convinced. "Is that what happened?" she asked. "Yes," Tyler snapped. "Ask anyone." The counselor glanced toward Marcus. "Marcus," she said gently. Marcus lifted his head. "I didn't attack him," he said calmly. "I tried to walk away. That was all. No anger. No exaggeration. No excuses." The principal leaned back in her chair and folded her hands. "We'll review the footage," she said. A few clicks of a keyboard filled the room. Then the video played, and the truth took over. The screen showed Tyler whispering insults. Marcus walking away. The shove. The locker slamming. Tyler's hand closing around Marcus's throat. The seconds stretching longer and darker. Then Marcus's controlled movement. Clean, precise, defensive. No punches. No rage. Just survival. The room fell completely silent. Tyler's face drained of color. "That's not," he started. But no one was listening anymore. At that exact moment, the door opened. Marcus's mother stepped inside. Her eyes immediately found her son. She rushed forward, touching his shoulder gently, checking his face, his neck. Her lips trembled, but she stayed composed. Then footsteps followed. Heavy, measured. Marcus's father entered the room. James Hill wore a simple marine jacket, faded but clean. His posture was straight, his presence undeniable. He didn't glare. He didn't scowl. He simply stood there, calm and unshakable. The principal swallowed hard. "Mr. and Mrs. Hill," she said carefully. "Thank you for coming so quickly." James nodded once. "May I speak?" he asked quietly. The room gave him its full attention. My son was taught never to seek violence, James began. I raised him to avoid conflict whenever possible. He gestured toward the screen. What you saw wasn't aggression. It was restraint. James explained Marcus's training, self-defense, discipline, control. Not trophies, not street fights. Training meant to protect life, not take it. He doesn't fight because he wants to, James continued. He fights because sometimes survival leaves you no choice. Then James turned toward Tyler. He didn't raise his voice, didn't insult him, didn't threaten him. My son showed discipline, James said calmly. Something you clearly lack. Tyler swallowed hard. For the first time, fear replaced anger. The principal cleared her throat. This behavior is unacceptable, she said firmly. Tyler Kane, you are suspended indefinitely. Tyler's head snapped up. What? He shouted. You can't do that. You're also removed from the wrestling team effective immediately, she continued. And a formal investigation is being opened for assault. The words hit like punches. Tyler's world collapsed in seconds. No team, no reputation, no protection. The counselor escorted Tyler out of the room, his protests echoing down the hallway. Every step felt heavier than the last. When the door closed, the room felt lighter. Marcus's mother hugged him tightly. You did the right thing, she whispered. The principal turned to Marcus. You showed incredible restraint, she said. I'm sorry it took something this serious for us to see what was happening. Marcus nodded. I just want to learn, he said quietly. That afternoon, news spread fast. The star wrestler was suspended. The bully was exposed. The truth was undeniable. And Tyler Kane learned the lesson too late. Power built on fear never lasts. And regret always comes when it's already too late to stop it. Word spread fast. By the end of the day, the whispers had turned into conversations. By the end of the week, the story had reached every corner of Jefferson High. Students who once laughed in the hallway now avoided eye contact, their smiles replaced with uneasy guilt. The same kids who had filmed instead of helping suddenly understood the weight of their silence. Teachers noticed the change too. They began standing in the hallways longer between classes. They listened more closely. They asked questions they had never bothered to ask before. Mandatory assemblies were scheduled. Anti-bullying policies were rewritten and reinforced. Not as words on paper, but as rules that would finally be enforced. For the first time in a long time, fear lost its grip on the school. And at the center of it all stood Marcus Hill. Not as a victim, not as a fighter, but as a reminder. Students looked at him differently now. Some nodded in respect. Others whispered his name like a legend passed quietly between lockers. But Marcus didn't change the way he walked or spoke. He still kept his head down, still focused on his classes, still treated everyone with the same calm respect. Strength, he knew, didn't need attention. Weeks passed. The chaos faded. The school settled into a new rhythm. Then one afternoon, in the crowded cafeteria, something unexpected happened. Marcus sat alone at his usual table, earbuds in, flipping through a notebook. The noise of lunch filled the room, trays clattering, laughter echoing, conversations overlapping. A shadow fell across his table. Marcus looked up. It was Tyler. No friends at his side. No smirk on his face. No confidence in his posture. Just a boy who looked smaller than he ever had before. Tyler hesitated, then cleared his throat. Can I sit? He asked quietly. Marcus studied him for a moment. Then he nodded. Tyler sat down, hands shaking slightly. He stared at the table, not meeting Marcus's eyes. I was wrong, Tyler muttered. I thought I could do whatever I wanted, that nobody would stop me. His voice cracked. I didn't think about what I was doing to you. The table felt heavy with silence. Marcus listened. Then he spoke, calm, steady, and without anger. Don't do it again, he said. That was all. No lecture, no revenge, no victory speech. Tyler nodded, swallowing hard. He stood up and walked away, carrying something heavier than shame, understanding. Because real strength isn't about choking someone to feel powerful. It isn't about fear, reputation, or control. Real strength is about restraint. It's about choosing not to become what hurt you. And Jefferson High never forgot that lesson. Not because of a fight, but because of a boy who showed everyone that dignity is louder than cruelty, and silence, when broken by courage, can change everything.